that this happened, mainstream media isn't the goal, but CNN picked up the report and did a really big special on it. We're hoping this time we can get it out through more grassroots ways as well, and we're working on creating our own videos, some of which we can show at the end of this presentation that that let people actually speak for themselves and not us have to speak for them, right? We've been filming people tell their stories when and how that is appropriate, and that's going to accompany the new publication we put out about abuses. So this covers a lot of what we do at border aid stations in Mexico. We also bring clothes. That's really crucial. You're in a very vulnerable position once you've been deported, and if you look like you were just deported, you have a number of people preying on you. So it's not that clothes might seem so necessary, you need a new anything, but when we come down with new clothes, people jump on it because you can change and blend in the city and be in a less vulnerable position. It's another thing that we offer. That one's the one we have in Agua Prieta. Like I said, we're mostly in Nogales right now, but also supporting the work in Agua Prieta. We can watch that in a minute. Now, one of the things maybe, I don't know if I know some or if all of you have heard that No More Deaths does, we wanted to touch on this last because I think it is just one component, is work in the desert, how we aid individuals who are suffering there. Jump on that, Matt.
Sure. I mean, I guess we talked about it a little bit earlier, but of course, since 1994, people have been walking longer and longer distances to make it to where they're going. In our area, people are walking through extremely mountainous terrain, and then also for miles and miles in flat desert. So on what can end up being a 10-day walk, people are carrying a gallon of water. So one of the like really key things that No More Deaths does, and it sounds really simple, is putting gallon jugs of water on trails that people are using to walk on. We also do things like food, clothing, blankets sometimes in the winter, and then every day we're also out walking trails. So walking the trails that other people are using to sort of be there as a resource for people. So if there are people who are separated from their group, people who are lost, people who are sick or injured, they can find us and they can ask us for things. Lots of times the things that we can help people with, provide people with are really limited. Providing people with water and food, calling Border Patrol if people decide that they're done walking and need to go back, calling an ambulance if people are very sick or injured, or helping to orient people to where they are. But we're there as a resource for people with a limited amount that we can provide them. Is there anything else that
No. I'm trying to see what else is there. Or if your resources are not going to be quick through a lot of that, and it's probably virtually impossible to digest it all. There's probably a lot more we could add anecdotally of what we've seen and experienced on the border, but we wanted to try to get through at least the context and then our resistance to it, again, basically meaning record deaths in the desert, record deportations, and I would argue record white supremacist sentiments for a long time, even though it's hard to gauge that, right? That we're trying to resist. So we've explained quickly some of the things we're doing. I know amazing work is happening in Utah and amazing organizing and resistance here as well. I guess we'd like to kind of end, not quite end there, but open it up for questions or see what people want to say or talk about. Yes, Matt? Oh yeah. Would you rather do a couple of short videos first or after we do?
I just got one quick question because I got to take off.
Okay, yes.
How and where do you get your funding?
No More Deaths actually not too long ago became a 501c3 through the Unitarian Church. They're not their own 501c3. We don't have any grants. It's really grassroots funded. People who come out to volunteer are expected, well, not expected, but asked to pay a donation fee, which covers basically the gas and the food that you use being out there, because there's a lot of gas. We drive far. We have a number of amazing churches across the country who support us. We do some donation drives every year, but it's kept pretty true to its roots, and it's not funded by big people. No, that's it. And there's no paid staff or anything. I mean, it's a consensus-based volunteer organization.
Yeah. How big is the organization generally? It sounds like it fluctuates, but...
Yeah, there's thousands of people, I would say, who've come and volunteered, and anyone who's volunteered or done anything with No More Deaths is a part of it. I would say active at any moment in Arizona, probably roughly 100, divided between, like you said, campaigns in Tucson and Phoenix, aid work in Mexico where people have been deported, and then the desert. Roughly 100? Is that fair?
Yeah,
it's really hard to
question
say.
to answer because people come down in the summer to work with us, and there's people throughout the country who work with No More Deaths, but it's as accurate as an answer.
And you guys are fairly strategic with the areas that you cover. There's like different groups or kind of teams covering different aspects of.
Yeah, it's kind of, what is that?
You mean in the desert?
I'm just wondering what your organization is like. I mean, does everybody know each other? Is it loosely organized or?
Yeah, I guess so. There's, at least within Tucson, there's sort of a known as general group that makes sort of bigger decisions, and then there's a number of different working groups. So there's a working group that organizes work in the desert, one that organizes work in Mexico, one that organizes abuse documentation, and a We Reject Racism group. So there's a lot of overlap between all of those, and then there's the general meeting where everybody participates. But generally speaking, people know each other.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions on what we can do here?
I mean, that's hard because I would not want to pretend that I'm like an authority on any of this or talk about what people here should be doing because I respect so many people in Utah. I grew up here and like feel like I'm speaking up to anyone when I come here. I don't want to like be like, oh, let me tell you what to do. But one thing that I would just suggest to anyone, or a stance I take all across, is take an abolitionist stance. Don't buy into like the partisan bullshit, and especially with this piece that's come through, think, the false idea of this maybe guest worker program that we're waiting on the federal government for to mean that anything's different. I also think making the issue bigger than these specific pieces of legislation is really important, showing how communities have been under fire for a long time. I think that in Utah it's obvious, right? Like you can go back to some of the biggest raids in the country, some of the craft stuff that's happening down south. I mean, Utah's got it bad, and I would also say that one important thing to do is connect and concrete connections between this legislation and those profiting. So as well, we have some detention facilities here in Utah. We also have some people who make lots of money off it. Like, actually, I remember the name of that group. Let me find it. That group down south in Provo-ish, I think they are. What? Their name is, where is it? I wanted to say it and I always forget it. You see it here? Management and training, right? So right there, like put pressure on the people making money.
What is the name of it again?
It's Management and Training Corporation. Take it home. Like I am on camera very explicitly saying do legal things. Shame them publicly. There's a lot of way to attack corporations that are very effective that doesn't have to put us all behind bars either, right? And there's a lot of public shaming behind that I think is effective. So let's start there.
Do you have any activist groups that you support that are here?
That are what? Sorry.
That are here in Salt Lake?
Someone's story who's experienced a lot of an ICE raid, or hearing someone's story who's experienced apprehension in the desert.
Aladdin?
Desert?
Yeah.
Desert? Okay. This is also the first time I ever edited anything with subtitles, so if it's not quite there yet, your brain works on it. Try it.
Should have dubbed it.
No medical needs.
Nobody's eating a limb, nobody's had any problems, and nobody's voiced any concerns.
Okay, we just.
If they have something or need something, they'll tell us, they'll let us know.
I mean, I just worry because I hear reports so many times of medical needs that aren't addressed and food that is inadequate. Like you said, the crackers are the only thing people eat.
It's actually doing pretty good.
They might respond differently if we ask how they're doing than you do.
They're fine, Thank you. For safety's sake, we try not to take any food from anyone because we don't know.
For safety's sake.
So just so people know, what was happening right there is that's out in the desert near where we work. The bus that's sitting and idling is a Whackman Hut bus. So Whackman Hut provides transportation for CBP, for Customs and Border Protection. And there are Border Patrol vehicles and a Border Patrol agent. So a group of people has been apprehended, and those people are being processed and put on the bus to then be taken either to Tucson to be processed or nonetheless to be reported. So that's sort of like in this interim, and Ricky's there talking to them because very often we try to intervene in those situations and see if people are sick or if they need water or food. And very, very often, almost in every case, we're denied access to those people, even when people end up in Border Patrol custody getting nothing but water and crackers. And we have food to offer people, or when people have obvious medical needs and are denied medical attention in Border Patrol custody.